Hi, my name is Kaden. I'm from SageNet Engineering, and this is an introduction to Digi Remote Manager, which is a replacement for AView to manage our accelerated devices. You'll be presented with this login page whenever you first try to access Digi Remote Manager. So let's just enter our credentials. It'll prompt you for a password afterward. There we go. And whenever you first log in, you will be presented with the dashboard and also this pop-up message. You can just hit OK on that. It'll give you an overview of the devices that are connected, what their health status is, what their general signal strength is, and if they fired off any alerts. If you click the devices button on the left-hand side, you will be presented with all the devices that are active on your account. In this case, this is a lab environment, and we have two accelerated devices that are in here. One is offline, which is indicated by this broken chain, and one is online, indicated by this linked green chain. You can name the device pretty much whatever you want. I just named them Engineering Lab to keep it simple. This column right here, the health status, will just tell you whether or not there's any alerts triggered from the device, such as a high CPU temperature or high RAM usage, things like that. The device ID is a 16-digit value used by Digi Remote Manager to identify the device, and it's derived from the MAC address with a pair of Fs in the middle, so foxtrot, foxtrot, dash, foxtrot, foxtrot between the OUI, the MAC, and the last part of the MAC. The type will just tell you what kind of accelerated it is. In this case, we have an accelerated 6310 that's online. If a device is never connected to the Digi Remote Manager, it'll show device type unknown. The group will tell you what group the device is tied to, and the group in Digi Remote Manager can be used to tie configuration templates to it as well. It'll show you the MAC address, the firmware version it's running, if there's new firmware available, the cellular character, whether it's AT&T, Verizon, or some other carrier, and it'll also show you a quick overview of the signal strength. You can also click these three dots right here to select what columns you want to add. I would recommend adding the tags, the public IP, and let's see if there's some other ones. It's configuration compliance, and you can also add your last disconnect, last connect, any of these you want to view, really. A lot of them are pretty helpful. If you hit close, it should update. And here we see the new columns. We see the tags, when the device was last updated, when it last connected, public IP, and the configuration compliance is represented by a shield. And if you click that same button and hit select columns, you can also, let's say we want to move the tags up to the front. We can just hit these three blue bars and move it up, and we can make it the very first one if we wanted to. Scroll all the way to the left, and you'll see that the tags are the very first things we see now. All right, I'm going to drill down to the details of a specific device. So whenever you click on a device name, it will bring you to the details page of that device, and you'll get a quick overview of a lot of the same information you saw previously. You'll see its name, what notes, if any, that we've left on it, what group it's tied to, what tags are on the device, and you'll also see if it's connected, what kind of connection it is, its primary IP address, device ID, etc., etc. You will also see the health status, which it should be normal if there are no alerts that have fired off on the bottom left here. The configuration compliance will also should be compliant most of the time, and that just means that no settings on the device are different than the configuration templates tied to. And the maintenance window, the service status will say in service most of the time, which means it's outside of the maintenance window. But if it is in a maintenance window, that just means that the device will try to either alert or remediate changes, or both, that have been made to the configuration template. If you click on the configuration scan history, you'll see that this device was added and it was scanned, the firmware was compliant, and apparently all the settings were compliant too, so it didn't make any changes. A quick thing about tags. Tags will be the way that SageNet, monitors sites for proactive monitoring. So it will always start with FL:, and then it will be followed by the SageNet functional location we use to uniquely identify a site. And then the next tag that we will generally use is cell-pri, cell-sec, or cell-ter, which stands for primary, secondary, and tertiary, respectively. In most cases, our accelerators are used as a secondary device, so they will be tagged as cell secondary, but there are some instances where they're used as a primary, so they will be tagged accordingly. Let's move on to the summary dashboard page. The summary dashboard will just give you a connection history of the device. It'll tell you how long it's been connected, its sent and received bytes, and some other IP address information that you can drill down into. And you can also customize what type of graph you're seeing. You can either have this kind of graph, or you could have this one. The signal quality and signal levels, this hasn't reported much since the device hasn't been online that long, but it will show you the RSRP and the RSRQ for the signal level history, and you can also change that to a different kind of graph. And it will also show you at the very bottom how many times the device has been rebooted. In this case, it hasn't been rebooted at all, but if there was a reboot, it would show up here. And you can customize a time frame of that. If you click on the metrics tab, it'll show you a lot more details about the device, such as its carrier, how many bars of signal it's getting, its signal strength. It'll also show you its cellular data usage, and you can change that to 24 hours, a week, or a month. And you can also change what kind of graph you're looking at. If you scroll to the bottom, you will and look under SIM1, which is where our SIM cards will be most of the time. You will get more information about the device, such as what phone number it has, what kind of cellular modem it has, the SIM card number, and all sorts of other useful information. And if you scroll to the bottom, you will also see if there's been any traffic on the Ethernet port of the device under LAN details. In this case, we have nothing connected to it. You will also see the uptime of the device, the amount of reboots it has, how much RAM it's using, its CPU temperature. Some devices do not have a CPU temperature sensor for the CPU specifically, so it'll just show up as 0 degrees Celsius, but it should at least show you the CPU usage. In this case, it's only 20.8, which is fine. Let's move on to the settings page. The settings page will be the configuration settings for this specific device. The Files tab, we aren't really using this, so this can be ignored. The Event Log tab, it will show event logs here if we have that turned on the configuration template. Sometimes we might have it turned off, but it'll just show you the kind of event logs that you would see in A view. The console tab will just bring you to the console of the device, and you can run commands on it if you wanted to, like show ARP to see if anything is ARPing. The last tab here would be the configuration management page, and the difference between configuration management and settings is that settings will be configuration parameters that are specific to this individual device that we are looking at, while the configuration management page will bring you to the configuration template settings. So we would generally recommend not messing with these settings. We don't even touch them most of the time. If you want to see what's actually running on the device, then you would check the settings tab. And let's see, if you click on this folder icon at the top right, it'll show you the groups that we have configured. In this case, we only have the group, which is represented by a /. So there's not really that many here, but on our customers, there should be at least 1 or 2 folders there, or groups there, I should say. If you click on data streams, there's not really too much valuable information here. It just uploads various bits of data from the device, such as its signal strength, sent and received bytes, things like that. It's not easy to read, so I wouldn't recommend looking at this page most of the time. If you click on the configurations page, you will see the configuration templates that we've configured. You will see the name of it, if it's enabled, and the status bar or icon. It will be a green check mark if all devices on the configuration template have settings that match the template, but if there are any that don't match, you would see a warning symbol or possibly a question mark. In the groups here, in this case, like I mentioned earlier, we only have the root group, which is a /, so we have assigned the root group to this configuration template, and that is how the device inherits its settings. It's because it's tied to this group, and this group is tied to this template. For every group, you can have 1 configuration template per device type. So what that means is that we could have 2 groups here, or we could have 2 configuration templates here, one for an accelerated 6310 and one for an accelerated 6300, and they both could be tied to the root group and work fine. But you couldn't have 2 configuration templates for the 6310 active simultaneously on the root group, because that would cause configuration conflicts, so it will just error out. If you click the alerts page and go to status, it will just give you an overview of all the devices that have fired off an alert. In this case, there is an alert here about this device ID. And this is also a default alert. You can't really change it. And if you click on definitions, you can see the ones that are defined here. There's not a whole lot of detail about them, but this is where you would see them. If you click on activity, you can see you basically have event logs over what activity has gone on in the account. For example, you can see from CLI start and CLI template, this is where I connected to the console of the device, and this is where I left the console of the device. You can also click on it. But yeah, there is some useful logs here if you want to see what's been going on the account. The events tab, it doesn't appear we have access to this because we're logged into a read-only account. the reports tab. You can generate a report here, such as how long, or the device availability, which should mean how long it's been connected to Digi Remote Manager since it first came online. And you could also generate a report for cellular utilization too on this other tab. Automations, we aren't really using that. On account, you can click here, look at your user profile, and you can see what you have set for your first, last name, your email, and what kind of role you have. Notifications, this will show you some more events, such as someone adding or deleting devices to your account. And API Explorer, I wouldn't really worry about that. One last feature I wanted to go over in Digi Remote Manager is the search function at the top here on the devices page. You can pretty much type anything you want here. I'm going to type engineering lab or ENG-lab, and it'll show these two devices here. I could type ENG lab 1, and it'll just show that specific device. You could also type the MAC address, or the first part of the MAC address, and it'll show up here. And if you want to be even more granular with your search, you could click this button at the top right called Advanced Search, and let's get rid of these. You could filter by the tag. Let's do cell secondary for the tag. It'll just show that. You can also add any number of filters you want to, such as device type. We could do 6310, and it'll basically match up to whatever you define there. You could also change this to contains, equals to, just any of these options you want. You can be as granular with it as you'd like.